The Battle for Britain's Soul, Free Speech, International Law, and Political Decay, by a critical observer of British politics. As the threads of Britain's democratic fabric are tugged from multiple directions, the nation teeters precariously on the edge of an identity crisis. What defines modern Britain, a nation that once stood tall as the beacon of free speech, political integrity, and international leadership? The political quagmire we see today raises troubling questions about the nation's commitment to its core values. From proposals threatening freedom of expression to international diplomatic entanglements and even royal family scandals, these issues reflect a deeper, more systemic malaise. Free speech on the brink, the shadow of blasphemy laws. At the heart of this crisis lies the ongoing assault on free speech, symbolized by Labour MP Tahir Ali's chilling proposal to criminalize the desecration of religious texts and figures. This is nothing short of a veiled attempt to introduce blasphemy laws, an abhorrent concept more suited to theocratic regimes than to a secular, liberal democracy like Britain. Such laws are not merely illiberal, they fundamentally undermine the principles of free thought and open debate. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's response in Parliament, which vaguely condemned hatred and division, was as disappointing as it was predictable. This was a moment for leadership. A chance to reaffirm that Britain is a land where ideas, not individuals, are protected. Instead, Sunak's failure to reject the proposal outright speaks volumes about the government's timidity when faced with issues of identity and culture. Even more glaring is the silence, or rather, equivocation, of Sir Keir Starmer. As the leader of the opposition, Starmer had an opportunity to draw a clear line in the sand, to champion the very freedoms that underpin British democracy. Instead, his refusal to confront Ali's proposal head-on reveals a dangerous tendency to appease, rather than. Britain's hard-won freedoms, including the right to offend and to question sacred beliefs, are the cornerstone of its democracy. To erode these freedoms in the name of protecting feelings or fostering social harmony is to betray the values that make Britain unique. It is a slippery slope, and one that Britain cannot afford to descend. International law and the Netanyahu debacle, a diplomatic quagmire. On the international stage, Britain faces yet another test of its moral and political resolve. The International Criminal Court's (ICC) issuance of an arrest warrant for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has ignited a diplomatic firestorm. While some, like former Shadow Attorney General Emily Thornberry, have argued that the UK is obligated to enforce the warrant, others caution against alienating key allies like the United States and Israel. Donald Trump's looming return to the presidency adds a new layer of complexity. His administration's disdain for the ICC is well documented, and his allies have already warned that any attempt to arrest Netanyahu would result in severe economic and political consequences for offending nations. For post-Brexit Britain, which is still scrambling to secure a comprehensive trade deal with the US, this poses an unenviable dilemma. The UK's response thus far, a non-committal statement emphasizing respect for the ICC while stopping short of outright support for its warrant, betrays a lack of coherent foreign policy. This is not merely a question of legal obligations, but of Britain's place in the world. Does it stand for the rule of law and international justice, or does it bow to the geopolitical realities dictated by stronger allies? Trump's return, a new era of pressure. Trump's expected return to the Oval Office heralds a seismic shift in global politics, one that Britain is ill-prepared to navigate. The 45th president, soon to be the 47th, has shown an unflinching willingness to use economic leverage as a weapon. His admonies. For Britain, the stakes could not be higher. A trade deal with the US is critical to its post-Brexit economic strategy, yet the moral cost of capitulating to Trump's demands cannot be ignored. This balancing act, between economic pragmatism and ethical consistency, will define Britain's global standing in the years to come. The royal family's public meltdown. While Britain grapples with these weighty issues, the ongoing drama within the royal family provides a stark, if trivial, contrast. Prince Harry's relentless attacks on Queen Camilla, including accusations of media manipulation, have transformed him from a once beloved figure to a self-imposed pariah. In a twist of irony, Camilla, who was once vilified as the most hated woman in Britain, has emerged as a pillar of stability within the monarchy. Her quiet resilience and dedication to public duty stand in stark contrast to Harry's increasingly bitter and self-serving rhetoric. While royal squabbles may seem insignificant in the grand scheme of things, they are emblematic of a broader cultural fragmentation. The monarchy, once a unifying symbol of British identity, now mirrors the divisions and dysfunctions of the society it represents. The broader crisis of leadership, at the root of all these issues, whether domestic, international, or symbolic, is a profound crisis of leadership. Britain is adrift. Lacking the bold, principled figures it needs to navigate these turbulent times, both Sunak and Starmer have demonstrated a reluctance to take risks, to stand firmly on issues of principle rather than pandering to populist sentiments or political expediency. This failure of leadership is not merely disappointing, it is dangerous. Britain's challenges require more than half measures and platitudes. They demand a renewed commitment to the values that have long defined the nation: liberty, justice, and integrity. Without this, Britain risks losing not only its place on the world stage, but also its very identity. A call to action: if Britain is to reclaim its role as a global leader and a bastion of democracy, it must confront these challenges head-on. This requires not only political courage, but also a willingness to engage in honest, sometimes uncomfortable, conversations about the nation's future. Free speech must be defended unequivocally, even when it offends. International commitments must be upheld, even when they are inconvenient. And leadership must mean more than simply avoiding controversy, it must mean inspiring confidence, unity, and progress. The alternative is unthinkable: a Britain that is no longer admired, respected, or even recognized as the land of freedom and opportunity it once was. The time for complacency is over. The battle for Britain's soul has begun, and the stakes could not be higher.